Hello and welcome to my channel. Tonight you have another dot to dot. This one is a little bit different. It's going from a grid of letter number to another letter number, so hopefully you will follow along. And it took me ages to see what this one was, but hence it has prompted these facts. So let me take you there. We'll see how we go, and yeah, well, we'll see how far we can get with these. So these are some lizard facts starting off. The first one, the site that I've got, is 5 reasons geckos are the coolest lizards. These are my favourite lizard, to be honest. You might not realise this, but humans are secretly obsessed with geckos. It's because we're jealous, honestly. Okay. We're always trying to emulate something about these sticky-fingered little lizards, from the way we engineer bras, to glue, to gloves. Okay. Geckos are a group of mostly nocturnal lizards that live in warm climates throughout the world. They're famous for their ability to stick to virtually any surface, and they're different from their lizard relatives in other ways as well. They're long-lived, talkative, they lack eyelids, and their small scales are situated next to each other like cobblestones, rather than overlapping, as is the case of most other lizards. But the stuff that sets geckos apart from their cousins isn't one of those things where you have brown eyes and black hair, or your cousins have blonde and blue-eyed. It's sort of like you have brown eyes and black hair and your cousins are magical elves. Let's explore 5 reasons geckos are the coolest lizards. Geckos have sticky feet. You're used to seeing insects walk along the wall or ceiling or even the underside of a glass table. But among vertebrates, some geckos have unprecedented ability to cling by their toes to literally anything, with a single exception to dry Teflon. Surprisingly, the reason for this has to do with the gecko's special toe hairs. The bottoms of their feet are covered with tiny hairs excuse me, that make contact with the surface they stand on, says Lynn Schwarzkopf, the professor of College of Science and Engineering at James Cook University in North Queensland, Australia. The process is completely dry with no suction involved. Through a combination of friction and van der Waals forces, the same forces that causes the meniscus in fluid in a glass, they stick to surfaces, and some can even walk around completely upside down. Gecko toes, at least the toes of most geckos, as some have regular old lizard feet, are covered with ridges, which are peppered with millions of microscopic bristle-like structures called setae that obey the gecko's every whim, attaching and detaching when the animal wills them to, and they never get gunked up. Evolution. Amazing. Geckos lick their own eyeballs. Ew. Imagine if instead of blinking, humans stuck out a long pink sticky tongue and cleaned off your eyeballs one at a time. That would be disgusting. Yet it's kind of cute when geckos do it. Geckos rely heavily on their eyesight. They have full colour vision and can see a large spectrum of colour even in very dim light. But most geckos don't have eyelids, so their precious eyeballs are covered with little protective scales that need to be wiped off occasionally. So it's really useful to have a long tongue in situations like these. You might be wondering how they protect the glittery, bulging eyes from the sun if they don't have lids, especially although a few species are diurnal. The majority of geckos spend most daylight hours snoozing. Even so, they have vertical pupils and can almost entirely overlap, allowing only a pinhole of light through to see by. Geckos are chatty. Most lizards don't vocalize, or not very loudly if they do, but geckos have sophisticated vocal communication systems similar to those of mammals and birds. Gecko vocalization is extremely flexible. Where most other lizards are mute and can only make weak hissing sounds, geckos can bark and click, squeak and chirp in order to attract mates, defend territories, or lure potential interlopers away when they are getting too close. The world's largest gecko, the New Caledonian gecko, I'm not saying the Latin, has a low growl that has led natives to its home islands to nickname it the devil in the trees. Geckos help with household pest control. Geckos mainly live on insects, and because our houses have lots of lights, which in turn attract a lot of bugs. Geckos can often be found inside human habitations. Houses have lots of narrow cracks and crevices, which provide shelter for geckos, says Schwarzkopf. Our species of geckos, the invasive Asian house gecko in Australia, loves to hang out in homes, and there are hundreds of species, and most don't live in houses. Geckos have antibacterial and water-repellent skin. It may not surprise you to learn that the gecko's skin is self-cleaning and antibacterial. Their ability to shed water helps them keep clean in the wild. I think its most fascinating thing about the geckos is their way the skin repels water, says Schwarzkopf. It looks like a freshly waxed car. Water beads up on it and rolls off the geckos, carrying dirt and bacteria away from their skin. Wow. Now, some more surprising facts, apparently. Other than their adhesive feet and lasting fame from a series of car insurance commercials, you probably don't know a whole lot about geckos. And yet this category is more than 1,100 species of lizard is filled with fascinating surprises. Delve into the world of the geckos and learn how they stick to ceilings, fly through trees, change colour and even call to each other with barks. Their amazing toes help them stick to any surface except Teflon. One of the most famous talents is their ability to scurry along slick surfaces, even glass windows or across ceilings. The only surface the geckos can't stick to is Teflon, dry Teflon. Add water, however, and geckos can stick even to this seemingly impossible surface. They do this through the specialised toe pads. Contrary to popular belief, they don't have sticky toes as if covered with glue. They cling with the nanoscale hairs, thousands of them that line every toe. An American scientist explains that gecko toes work nothing like pressure-sensitive adhesives found on adhesive tape, which are low enough to flow and make inanimate continuous surface contact. Instead, gecko toes bear ridges covered in arrays of hair, stiff hair-like setae. Each seta branch is into hundreds of tiny endings that touch the surface and engage intermolecular van der Waals forces. Together, the 6.5 million setae, or a 50-gram gecko, on a 50-gram gecko, generate enough force to support the weight of 2 people. Furthermore, gecko toes detach within milliseconds, stick to nearly every surface, and neither stay dirty nor self-adhere. Fantastic adaptation of geckos has inspired scientists to look for ways to mimic this clingability, improving everything from medical bandages to self-cleaning tires. Geckos' eyes are 350 times more sensitive to light than human eyes. There's a photo of a gecko eye here, and it's absolutely incredible. Most gecko species are nocturnal, and they are particularly well adapted to hunting in the dark. According to the study of the helmet gecko, Tarantola chazaliae, discriminates colours in dim moonlight when humans are colourblind. The sensitivity of the helmet gecko eyes have been calculated to be 350 times higher than human cone vision at a colour vision threshold. The optics and the large cones in the gecko are important reasons why they can use colour vision at low light intensities. While we would hardly be able to make out colour in dim moonlight, geckos can go about their business in what to them is still a colourful world. Jennifer Green writes in Reptile Times, geckos in particular have eyes sensitive to blue and green, which makes sense when you consider that most habitats, the wavelengths of light being reflected, most fall into that colour range. Instead of red, the cone cells in the gecko's eyes sees into the UV range. So are they blind on moonless lights? Not quite. There are other sources of light, such as starlight, as well as other reflective surfaces, bouncing light off each other, leaving enough light for the blue and green seeing gecko to still be active. Geckos are able to produce various sounds for communication, including barks, chirps, and clicks. Unlike most geckos, the lizards, geckos are able to vocalize. And there's a piece from National Geographic here saying the chirping, sometimes called barking, of geckos is either a territorial or a courtship display to ward off other males or attract females. Peter Zanni, a biologist at the University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point, says via email, "The noteworthy noisemakers," Zanni said, "are Mediterranean house geckos, which squeak during fights and flirtatiously click to draw females. The turnip-tailed gecko of Central and Southern America makes territory marking clicks thought to mimic insects. And the New Caledonia gecko, the largest gecko at 14 inches or 36 centimeters, has a growl that has earned it the nickname the devil in the trees. The sound of one gecko is even embedded in its name. Male tokay geckos from Asia make a loud, persistent mating call. Tokay, tokay. The purpose of the sounds could be to warn away competitors from a territory, to avoid direct fighting, or to attract males, depending on the species and situation. If you ever hear the odd chirping in your house at night, you might have a gecko at sunset. As a guest, sorry. Oh, and my mouse is doing a weird thing. Hang on just 1 second. Oh, I'm not happy now. Right. Okay. Some species of geckos have no legs and look more like snakes. There are upward of 35 species of lizard in the Pygopodidae family. This family falls under the clade of Geckota, which includes 6 families of geckos. These species, all of which are endemic to Australia and New Guinea, lack forearms and have even vestigial hind limbs that look more like flaps. The species are usually called legless lizards, snake lizards, or, thankfully to the flap-like feet, flap-footed lizards. Try saying that fast. Like other species of gecko, pygopods can vocalize, emitting high-pitched squeaks for communication. They also have standout hearing, which are capable of hearing tones higher than those detectable by any reptile species. Most geckos can detach their tails and regrow them later if necessary. Like many species of lizards, geckos are able to drop their tails as a response to predation. When a gecko is grabbed, the tail drops off and continues to twitch and thrash around, providing a great distraction that might allow the gecko to escape from a hungry predator. Geckos can also drop their tails as a response to stress, infection, or if the tail itself is grabbed. Amazingly, geckos drop their tails along a pre-scored or dotted line, so to speak. It's a design that allows a gecko to lose its tail quickly with minimal damage to the rest of its body. According to Life Science, to find out how the lizard loses their tail, the team used several types of microscopes to visualize the leopard's tail structure and also observed the appendage shedding in euthanized geckos. They found the gecko tail had a zigzag line that separates segments of the tail, forming a pre-cut line. When the geckos shed their tail, they left behind a pointy, crown-shaped stump. At the stump, the team was able to see bizarre mushroom-shaped structures. These structures, the team hypothesizes, form to reduce the adhesive or sticky forces that allow the gecko tail to rip off. A gecko can regrow its top tail, although the new tail will likely be shorter, more blunt, and coloured in a bit differently than the original tail. The crested gecko is one species that cannot regrow its tail. Once it's gone, it's gone. Geckos use their tails to store fat and nutrients for lean times. Losing a tail isn't a favourable event for a gecko, not only because it's an energy-intensive process to regrow a whole tail, but also because a gecko stores nutrients and fat in the tail as protection against times when food is scarce. Because of this, for many species, a plump, well-rounded tail is a good way to gauge the individual gecko's health. Depending on the species, a thin tail may indicate starvation or illness. Geckos can live a long, long time. Geckos range in lifespan depending on the species, but may live around 5 years in the wild. Several species that are popular as pets, however, can live a bit longer. In captivity, a well-tended gecko can live between 10 and 20 years. Leopard geckos average 15 to 20 years, although the longest living individual is recorded at 27 years old. Lynette, how old are your lizards? Most species of gecko don't have eyelids, they lick their eyes to clean them. Perhaps one of the oddest facts about the geckos is that most species lack eyelids. Because they can't blink, they lick their eyes to keep them clean and moist. Well, technically they're licking the transparent membrane that covers the eyeball. Backwater Reptiles explains, gecko species that can't blink have fixed, immovable eyelids. Examples of species of geckos with these type of eyelids are the tokay geckos, crested geckos, 52 species of day geckos in the Phelsuma species, and house geckos. These types of geckos are often called spectacle or a clear scale over the eye instead of an eyelid. It's often said that the gecko's tongue is like a windshield wiper and the spectacle is like a windshield. Licking the eyes also helps to keep their spectacles from drying out and serves the same function as when we humans blink. Geckos are masters of colour. It's not only chameleons that can change colour to match their surroundings. Geckos can too. What's more, they can blend into their environment without even seeing their surroundings. In studying Moorish geckos, Domenico Fulgione and his team discovered that it isn't vision that gives the geckos use to blend in, but rather the skin on their torso. They sense rather than see their surroundings to camouflage themselves. Ed Young reports in National Geographic, they found that the skin is rife with opsins, light-sensitive proteins that are the basis of animal vision. When light enters your eyes, opsins in your retina respond by triggering chemical reactions that send signals to the brain. That's how you see. The Moorish gecko has plenty of opsins in its eye too, but the team have also found that these proteins are all over the skin of its torso. It's especially common in the lizard's flanks and in cells called melanophores that are filled with dark pigments. The researchers think that the flank opsins can respond to surrounding light levels and automatically adjust the gecko's colour. If they're right, the lizard has a kind of distributed vision that is independent of its eyes and perhaps its brain. In other words, it can see with its skin. Other species of gecko are particularly adapted to blend in with their habitat based on their skin patterns, which make them look like lichen, textured rock, or moss, such as a mossy leaf-tailed gecko, the Weibera leaf-tailed gecko pictured above, or the satanic leaf-tailed gecko pictured below. And the one that's above is camouflaged against a rock, and the one that's below has what looks like a leaf, a dead brown leaf with puzzle pieces taken out of it. The satanic leaf gecko perfectly mimics dead leaves. Speaking of this species is worth discussing, since few geckos are so incredibly well adapted to look exactly like a leaf, and a demonic leaf at that. I don't know what makes it demonic. This species of gecko is identical to dry leaves found on the forest floor or even among branches, right down to the veined skin and insect-nibbled notches. Endemic to Madagascar, the species relies on this uncanny resemblance to dead leaves to escape the detection of predators. To complete the masquerade, satanic leaf-tailed geckos will often hang from branches to look like leaf curling away from the stem. Wired notes. They'll spend the day hanging motionless off the branches or snuggling among dead leaves, often twisting their leafy tails around their bodies. Their largest species of the satanic genus have still another strategy for sleeping safely during the day, flattening their bodies against tree trunks and limbs, making good the use of famously grippy feet. Fringes and flaps along the edges of their bodies help erase their outlines and shadows, dissolving the geckos into the bark. Ultimately, the satanic leaf-tailed gecko is a standout creature that you'd be hard-pressed to locate. Some gecko species can fly. Well, sort of. The flying gecko, or parachute gecko, is a genus of arboreal gecko species found in Southeast Asia. While they aren't capable of independent flight, they get their name from their ability to glide using flaps of skin found on their feet and their flat rudder-like tails. The flying gecko can glide up to 200 feet in a single bound. Despite measuring only 6 to 8 inches in body length, these geckos, while skittish, are relatively popular in the pet trade. The smallest gecko species is less than 2 centimeters in length. Ooh, can I have one of those? Geckos vary in size, but the most diminutive of species can fit on a dime. The Jaragua sphero, or dwarf gecko, is one of the world's smallest reptiles. This and other gecko species, the species Parthenopean, measure just 0.63 inches in length from snout to tail. The small gecko is an equally small range, and it's believed to be limited to only the Jaragua National Park in the Dominican Republic and the Beta Island. One of the biologists who discovered the minute lizard, Blair Hedges, told reporters, "Our discovery illustrates that we still don't know everything about the Earth species, even in areas that are very close to the United States. We did not even know the species existed, although the area has been studied by biologists for several hundred years. Leave it to the geckos to keep us guessing." Alright, what else have we got? We have some other lizard facts. We have thorny devils, lizards that change colour according to temperature. Thorny devils look like they lost a fight with a thorny bush. They're covered from head to tail with spikes and thorns. These thorns make them look scary, but thorny devils are actually shy and quiet. The thorns probably help protect these lizards from predators like... I guess we'll have to click and find out. These predators like birds and snakes. Thorny devils live in deserts of Australia. Very few animals live here because it's so hot and dry. Thorny devils have some tricks for dealing with the heat. When it's hot, they sometimes burrow under the ground. They also rise up on their back legs and lean against a shrub for balance. Frill-neck lizards, the lizards with the most creative protections. Most animals have some way to protect themselves against enemies. The frilled lizard has one of the most creative protections. This little lizard open up a frill around its neck and make it look big and scary. It might open its mouth and hiss. But if these tactics don't work, the lizard turns tail and runs to the safety of a tree. Frilled lizards live in Australia. Even the largest lizard is less than 3 feet long and weighs about a pound. Frilled lizards eat insects and small animals and spend most of their time in trees where they're safe. Alright, lizards are reptiles. Some lizards can detach their tails if caught by predators. The upper and lower eyelids of chameleons are joined, leaving just a small hole for them to see through. They can move their eyes independently, however, allowing them to look in 2 different directions at the same time. Chameleons have long tongues, which they rapidly extend from their mouth, too fast for human eyes to see properly. Chameleons generally eat insects. Some chameleons have the ability to change colour. This helps them communicate with each other and can also help be used for camouflage. Geckos have no eyelids. Geckos have unique toes which allow them to be good climbers. Iguanas have a row of spines which run down the back and tail. Green iguanas are popular pets. The Komodo dragon is the largest type of lizard, growing up to 3 meters, 10 feet in length. They are found in a number of different Indonesian islands, and the Komodo dragon is carnivorous or meat-eating and can be very aggressive. Alright. And wrapping up, hopefully. Scientific name is Lacertilla. The kingdom is Animalia. The subkingdom is Bilateria. The infrakingdom, whatever that is Deuterostomia. The phylum is Chordata. The subphylum, sorry, I'm giving Sophie some lollies because she's needing to actually go to bed. The subphylum is Vertebrata. The infraphylum is Gnathostomata. The class is Reptilia. The superclass is Tetrapoda. The subclass is Diapsida. And the order is Squamata. Out of the 6,263 species, only 2 species are venomous. They are the Gila monster and the Mexican beaded lizard. Their venom is not so powerful to kill a human being, but it causes acute pain. They are present everywhere except the continent Antarctica. They can be as small as 1.6 centimeters to as long as 11 feet. Some lizard species can weigh up to 166 kilograms. The weight and length of lizard varies with the species. Depending on the species, they may live anywhere from 1 year to 30 years. There are a few species of lizards that look similar to the snakes because their legs are so small they're not visible, or they don't have legs at all. So people often mistake these lizards to be snakes. To identify whether it is a snake or a lizard, one has to focus if the animal has eyelids and external ears. If yes, then it is a lizard, not a snake. I'm not sure you want to get up close enough to find that out. Komodo dragon is the largest lizard. It's seen only in the Komodo Islands of Indonesia. They are generally 10 to 11 feet in length and are so powerful that even animals bigger than their size succumb to death if they attack. They have strong jawline and toxic saliva. They can even attack humans and sometimes succeed to kill as well. Did you often see lizards frequently taking its tongue in and out? They do it to smell. Yes, they smell by tasting the air around them. They can do this because they have something called a vomeronasal organ. Do you know that a lizard's teeth are replaced every time the earlier set of teeth fall off? Well, not every species of lizard is lucky to have their teeth replaced naturally time and time again. There are some species in lizards that squirt blood from their eyes to protect themselves from predators when they feel there is some kind of threat. They can do this with the help of horns, which are present near their eyes. The blood squirted from their eyes can go a distance of up to 4 feet. When there is a scarcity of water, they save water and excrete only salts, and you can actually see a white residue on their body, which is salt. Do you know that lizards are born dumb and remain so till they die? No, we're not talking about being dumb, but we meant that they don't have any vocal cords. These means they cannot make any sounds. They communicate only through body language. However, the gecko is the exception, and it has vocal cords. You think chameleons change colour so as to camouflage with surroundings and in this way protect themselves from predators? You're so wrong. They change colour according to their mood, temperature, health, communication and light. It's a visual signal for aggression or mating behaviour, etc. Not only that, they can move their 2 eyeballs in 2 different directions simultaneously. They can also see ultraviolet light, and most of the times their tongue is 1.5 to 2 times longer than their bodies. Wow. Immaterial to which species a lizard belongs, they need sunlight to maintain their body temperature. Why, you ask? It is because they're cold-blooded animals and their body temperature changes with slight change in temperature in their surroundings. They grow till they live. When they need to grow more, they simply shed their skin and start growing. Growing was never so easy. Lizards are very good climbers. Gecko lizards are the master of all lizards when it comes to climbing. Some species can run backwards with great speed. Another adaptation to save lives from predators is autonomy. The lizards can shed their tails off. A new tail would grow after some time, but it will be thinner than the original one. Some species found in America, like the basilisk or collared lizards, can actually walk on water when they are small. This ability is called bipedal locomotion. Some lizards, like dracos, can glide. They can glide from one treetop to another. A thin membrane joins the fore and hind limbs of the lizard to make gliding possible. It acts like a parachute, and these lizards are rightly called as the flying lizards. Greeks and Egyptians considered lizards as representative of knowledge, wisdom, and fortune, and therefore, in hieroglyphics, their picture denoted the symbol for the word plentiful. In Central America, lizards like iguanas are eaten. They are considered as fish in the desert. Few lizards have wonderful eyesight, and they have acute colour vision. That is, they can differentiate between colours. I really enjoyed those facts. I hope you did too. It was a gecko that I was doing as my drawing, and I decided to pick on some lizard facts and see how we go. Thank you for joining me. I hope you have learnt something new. I know we have a few lizard mums and dads in the YouTube land, and hopefully they've enjoyed some of these facts. If you have got lizards, please let me know. I know Lynette has a whole bunch of lizards actually, and Sherry is getting a bearded dragon possibly. But yeah, there are a few lizard mums and dads out there, so yes, drop me a comment, let me know what you have. Alright, take care everyone, and I will see you some other Friday for some more funny facts. Bye for now.